Hello, I'm Darren Magee, and the topic for today's video comes from questions around narcissistic people and victimhood. Questions including, how and why do they claim and exploit victimhood? Why does it seem to work for them? Why do others believe them? So to answer those questions, I'm going to be looking at research that's been carried out that shows how dark personality types are more likely to claim, exploit, and indeed sometimes even weaponize victimhood. I will add that research in the description of this video. And there is a lot to cover in this topic, so today I'm going to be looking at the exploiting and weaponizing of victimhood. In the next video, I'm going to be looking at why it seems to work for them, why they seem to get away with it. And the following might just sound like the sort of thing you would see on social media, but remember, these things happen in families, workplaces, communities, even in romantic relationships. So to begin with, if you've been in a situation or a relationship with a narcissistic person, you might recognize that anytime you reacted to their bad behavior, they focused on your reaction as evidence of them being abused, them being mistreated. They never seem to pay attention to what causes the reaction. And this is what's known as reactive abuse. Now, I have made a video previously on reactive abuse if you want to check that out. But when it comes to the dark personality and claiming victimhood, we're often talking about much more than just blaming their victims. When it comes to dark personality, according to research, what we're looking at is people with strong characteristics found on the Dark Triad. Now, the Dark Triad consists of narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. Narcissism, that's characterized by a sense of self-importance. There's a huge sense of entitlement, being highly disagreeable and highly resistant to criticism. There is also a lack of empathy for others. Psychopathy, now that's the antisocial element, and that's characterized by callousness and a disregard for the safety and the well-being of others. Machiavellianism, that's being exploitative, manipulative, and duplicitous. And although the research I looked at focused on the Dark Triad, more recently, other research into the dark personality has added a fourth component, and that is sadism. They call that the Dark Tetrad. And sadism, that's characterized by taking positive delight and pleasure from the pain and the misery of others. So how do these characteristics come together to exploit victimhood? Well, when these traits are co-occurring together, what you often see is someone who's prepared to lie and scheme in order to get what they want, regardless of what it might cost others. Someone who will glorify their own or other people's pain just for attention or to get resources or to avoid accountability. Someone who will use cruelty, often disguised as moral outrage, just to get others to conform. And they can justify their abusive behavior towards others because of their issues, their exaggerated slights. So how do they go about it? Well, the research shows there are two elements to this. Firstly, there is what's referred to as victim signaling. Now, this is publicly expressing pain, struggles, and disadvantages in order to get them what they want and to control others. Claiming victimhood can increase someone's access to resources. It gets them attention. It sometimes they even believe it can absolve them from responsibility for their actions. It's a form of manipulation. It's also quite parasitical. But remember, narcissists have a huge sense of entitlement. They want admiration, sympathy, status, resources without having to earn anything. They prey on and exploit other people's goodwill, their kindness, just to get them what they want. They tap into people's consciences, they exploit them. No one wants to be blamed for hurting people who are already hurt. When they don't get what they want, well, they'll claim that they're being abused, neglected, oppressed. Others don't care about them. They are deliberately withholding things just to make their lives difficult. Secondly, there's virtue signaling. Now, this is displaying their good, kind nature publicly for others to see. They portray a moral, upstanding member of the community. They might be involved with a worthy cause, supporting others who are less fortunate than themselves. Remember, narcissists want to be admired. And the research shows that whenever dark personality types both victim and virtue signal, this is known as virtuous victimhood. They are noble, virtuous, and wounded all in one. Their ability to manipulate, exploit, and hurt others hugely increases. They get sympathy, validation, time, resources, and sometimes behave as selfish and abusive as they want because no one wants to condemn a victim, especially not a brave and noble one who is fighting on behalf of others. So, some of the common ways in which dark personality types exploit victimhood would be firstly, exaggerating disadvantage. Now, exaggerating it, that regardless of their social standing, regardless of their position, say in an organization or in the community, even in a relationship, they will still claim some kind of unfair disadvantage. They are ill, they have trauma, they have issues so terrible they can never be resolved. They are where they are today because of unfairness and mistreatment. And they act like that disadvantage gives them a moral high ground. In a relationship, they might claim their partner's needs are actually selfish demands. Their boundaries are selfish. How the partner feels about something is unkind, it's immoral, and it's abusive. They judge and criticize their partners and indeed others from a twisted sense of morality. Partner might say, "Oh, I'm hungry." Well, they might come back with, "Oh, you're hungry. Well, enjoy your meal. There are people over there starving." If the partner leaves them, the partner was unreasonable. The partner left them to struggle alone. The partner abandoned them. The partner lacks empathy. They are the injured party. In a work situation, if they didn't get that promotion, well, it's because of something personalized against them. They were rejected, and their disappointment often becomes a grievance against the company. Now, in the meantime, they often begin to look for and highlight anything negative they can find about the person who actually got the job. But they do it as if they are fighting against something really unjust. They can be quite creative in how they demonize others from their sense of victimhood. But remember, they've had a lifetime to learn how to manipulate. They know what hurts and what shames. They also know what gets them sympathy or what their audience wants to hear, which is why we often see them magnifying negative, unlikable, and immoral qualities in their targets. Next, there's constant misery. Now, this would mostly be associated, but not exclusive to covert narcissism. I often think this is maybe the sort of person who just lives their life like an open wound in public. Everything is painful, nothing is fair. The truth is, many people do tend to sympathize with those in pain, those who have been through hardship. But after a while, maybe they find themselves being exploited, but afraid to say no because of how that might look to others. Because again, nobody wants to be seen as someone who kicks somebody when they're down. Then there is dumping responsibility onto others. For instance, someone leaving an abusive relationship. Now, the abuser might threaten to harm themselves or to harm someone else if they don't come back. They are making the victim responsible for their safety. Or if their victim doesn't comply, doesn't toe the narrative, well, they might claim that others may be harmed or may harm themselves if they don't. Next is envy. Narcissistic people can be very envious of others. When they see others with something they don't have or can do something that they can't, it's got nothing to do with hard work, skill, sacrifice, or competence. It usually comes down to unfairness. They got that. They got where they are through unfair advantage. Other people's success can only come through their oppression and exploitation. Other people's happiness must mean that someone else is miserable. It comes at their expense. In many relationships with narcissistic people, partners tend to play down their strengths, their qualities, hide their true feelings due to narcissistic envy. When it comes to weaponizing victimhood, this is when they use their own victimhood, their own difficulties, disadvantages, or other people's victimhood as a way to dominate, control, and punish. And I think in cases like this is where we often see the psychopathy and the sadism come into play. And I'm going to elaborate more on that in a moment. But what we often see are issues, problems, difficulties magnified, sometimes even just made up. Not getting what they want is abuse, it is evil. We see all or nothing thinking, so disagreement is hatred, and there is no reasoning, there is no debate. Many times, victims are often terrorized into complying or not speaking up. There's a fear of the rage, the fear of being called out as wicked and immoral. There's fear of being labelled as cruel and unfeeling. Victims often fear rejection from their wider social group. There's a loss of status. There may be even a fear of losing their job. And I'm not just talking about the cancel culture that you hear about online, because a common threat in relationships with narcissistic people is that they threaten to tell others about what their victim is really like. They threaten to contact friends, families, and workplaces. And I think in reality, what they're often really saying is, I'm going to tell people about the things I accuse you of. That being said, though, threats like that are callous and sometimes enough to frighten people into silence and into compliance. Now, let's look at the sadistic side. Enforcing sadism is a subtype of sadistic personality, and that would be described as someone who acts as if it is their moral duty to seek out and punish wrongdoers, wrong thinkers. They behave as if they're on some kind of moral crusade. You find people a lot like this on social media, workplaces, communities, and in families. It's like their sole purpose in life is to look for evidence of other people's bad behavior and punish them. And the punishment, the humiliation of their targets is often merciless, but they claim moral immunity due to their virtuous victimhood. It's like, my pain is evidence of your wrongdoing. My outrage is evidence of how noble and justified I am. You must be punished. But what we really see is callousness, cruelty, and vindictiveness disguised as justice. Now, as a result of the behavior of dark personality types, many genuine victims of abuse, many people with genuine grievances and disadvantages can fear coming forward or speaking up out of fear. Fear of that vindictiveness. They fear they may be vilified for having a grievance. They fear that what they have been through may be hijacked and either used against them or used to hurt someone else. Because victim and virtue signaling is becoming more and more prevalent, many are afraid that they may be accused of doing the very things that the dark personality types are doing. So instead, suffer in silence. Because dark personality types get a lot of attention, sympathy, and power from their moral outrage, especially if that outrage is on behalf of others. They also get encouragement from other like minded dark personality types. Now, I've made a video on communal narcissism if you want to check that out. But they all validate each other, they stand up for each other, and seem to take a sadistic delight in tormenting and targeting those they see as opponents. Because narcissism, by its very nature, is destructive, even when they claim it is for the greater good. So that's a brief outline of how dark personality types exploit victimhood. In the second part of this video, I'm going to outline the why and how they get away with it, and maybe look at some ideas to keep yourself safe. But if you've been on the wrong end of the narcissistic dark personality types, I would invite you to think about reaching out to someone for support, an organization, a mental health professional, and I will add some resources in the description of this video. But as always, if there's anything I haven't included, please feel free to use the comment box below. And if you found this video interesting, please consider subscribing to my channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.